All things office tech, leadership, company culture, and fun. This is Fisher's Technology.
Hi, Jack. Thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate you carving time out, and it's good to see you. It's been a little while, and what this is, just for background, is we do a series, a leadership development series, internally at Fisher's, and then we do podcasts of that content. We thought, well, we're hearing enough from Chris. Let's get some real leaders on here and hear their thoughts on leadership and their story and just anything useful to anybody tuning in here. So I appreciate some time with you and your candor. So
glad to be here, friend.
Thanks, Jack. So first of all, tell us about your childhood. Where'd you grow up? What'd you do?
I grew up in Spokane, Washington, and went to school here. Then headed to Gonzaga Prep, and after Gonzaga Prep, I went to Harvard of the West, which is the University of Idaho in Wasco.
That's right.
Finished up there, then on to Gonzaga for graduate school, and throughout that period of time, I've worked here at Washington Trust Bank.
What in that childhood, can you think of any experiences or anything that happened to you that led to who you are as a leader and what your career path and success have been?
Yeah, I think what launched my career was my neighbor, Bill Scammell, was vice chairman of the bank, and he came over one day and said, "What are you going to do this summer?" And I said, "Go to the lake." He said, "No, you're going to go to work." And he said, "I want a business plan." And he put together a business plan for us to paint all the drive-ins, the posts and the drive-ins at the bank. And so he had us bid on this contract. And he told us that a commercial contractor had bid $3,000. And so he asked us what we could do it for it. And we said $375. And so throughout that process, he explained to us what a bid was and how we wanted to be at $2,999, not at $275. And so he hired us, and we hired some kids in the neighborhood and started painting the drive-ins at the bank. Made more money that summer than I have in my entire life, and learned a ton about business. And it started my career at the bank, and I've been here ever since.
Nice. And so you studied finance undergrad and then MBA?
Finance undergrad, yeah.
What made you choose that career, I guess, that educational path?
Yeah, I would say as a student, I was adrift and trying to figure it all out. And DA Davidson had a program they sponsored with the business school where we could actually invest stocks and invest in real companies and have a portfolio and manage it. And when we did that, I immediately got the fever for the public markets, learned a ton. And we were fortunate that we were in a bull market at that point in time. So we thought that we were geniuses as we invested because of the returns that we got. And it kind of set the hook for business for me. And it was a great program.
And of your undergrad and grad degrees, any courses stand out that were particularly impactful in you as a leader and your business success?
I think the two classes that jump off the page at me would be the DA Davidson trading class. So we had hands-on experience with public markets. And that was fantastic. And then the other class was a leadership class that I took at Gonzaga that that Coughlin was the CEO of the school at the time, taught on servant leadership. And those two kind of set my path.
Nice. What's a typical day look like for Jack Heath?
It's called organized chaos. It starts early with a little bit of exercise. And then rolls into the day. And in the mornings, I meet with my direct team and find out what's really happening at our company and kind of get the strategic overviews and reports for what's happening throughout our organization. Usually client interaction for lunch and one meeting in the afternoon with customers. And then in the evening, usually a community event, and then followed by a client event that evening. And so it's a nice mix of spending time with our clients, learning about what's happening there, spending time with our key employees and frontline folks. And then there's never a lack of community opportunities, as you know.
And where does Lisa fit in that day?
She fits in on, we have a really slick system that we set up, and it's called red, yellow, and green. So on my calendar, there's for every event that I go to, it has one of those three colors. If it's red, it's don't even bother coming. You won't be a part of it. You don't want to do it. If it's yellow, then it's something you should do, and I'd love to have you there, but it's totally optional. And if it's green, welcome to the team. You're going to go meet a customer or a nonprofit, and we're going to have fun.
Well, what traits about Jack do you think make you successful?
That's a great question. It's still confusing to me that I can consider myself successful. And I think three factors. One is underachiever academically, which made me a little hungrier. Two was relationships I created in college that are still best friends of mine today, and we're YPO members in Boise. That the friendships that we kind of developed and our ability to work together and build over all these years. And three is having fun, loving being with people, and being really proud of the company I work for.
You are a lot of fun. I know that.
I hope so.
By the way, I'm not going to play this podcast for my kids. I'm trying to get them to get their grades up. So that underachiever comment, we cut out of the.
Hey, just so you know, you're going to be fine. My son made it to Notre Dame, for God's sake. So either his mom was brilliant or some miracle happened there. So there's hope.
She can't be too brilliant if she married you. But
that's exactly. Bad choices and intelligence don't necessarily go together. Time shows that over time.
Well, so what does Jack suck at? What are you not good at?
Jack sucks at downtime and is a little too ADD. And I think the thing that I like activity. I like to be around people and be busy. And so the biggest challenge I have is slowing down and really spending time. And sometimes I think for people around me, that can be a challenge.
Yeah, me too. Now you know I'm my big thing is people and culture make organizations great, and I can't say enough about Washington Trust Bank and the culture that you have and that you've developed. How would you describe your culture?
Well, I think our culture starts with a fourth generation family held company, right? We've been around for 120 years. And so Pete, who's our chairman, kind of starts that with his servant leadership. And the greatest example I could give is when we go to dinner and we're sitting there having dinner, someone will say, I thought the chairman and owner of your bank was going to come. And I said, he's sitting right next to you. And they'll say, well, you said you work at Washington Trust Bank. You didn't say you own Washington Trust Bank. He goes, I do work there. And the point being, I think it starts with leadership and really a sense of community and caring about our people. And the analogy that I use for our success is very simple. When we hire people, I ask them to interview us as hard as we interview them, to spend real time asking the hard questions. And my goal is that in 5 years, when I run into you in the hallway and I say, Chris, how's it going at Washington Trust Bank? Your answer is always the same. And it's, number one, I joined your company and this was a little bit of a surprise. This was a little easier. This was a little harder, but it was as advertised. 2, I love the people I work with. 3, I love the clients I work with. 4, I'm proud of the company I work for. And most importantly, I'm having a lot of fun and I've never worked harder in my life. And if we can accomplish that, it creates a culture that's both fun, but also high achieving and really focused on the client. And I think that's really what has built our culture, our secret sauce going forward.
I love that. How do you reinforce, foster, and enhance that culture and keep it alive?
I think it's really simple. One is our chairman, Pete, told me when I took this job, you need to make sure every person you hire is better than you and at what they do. So make sure you surround yourself with an excellent team. And at the end of that, he added, and by the way, it shouldn't be that hard. And it hasn't been. So it starts with hiring a lot of great people. And then number 2, creating relationships so you're both friends and your coworkers. And I think that's been the magic of our culture is we all like each other. We work closely together. We understand each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we hold each other accountable. And we do it in a fun way. And that's made a big difference. Has COVID been a challenge for that culture? COVID has been an amazing challenge. I mean, it's truly mind-boggling. I remember when we went into the COVID challenge, I thought we'd be gone for a couple of weeks. And to take our entire team remote and then to jump into the PPP, and we did $1.8 billion in PPP loans. We were open 24/7 for a week doing those. And it was just a crazy time. And I think from a cultural standpoint, the one thing that I've recognized is for all of us that worked here together, we rallied around it and continued business as usual. It went really well. Where the challenge has been for us is we've added a lot of new people to our team. And I was just touring our offices in the last few days and running into people in the hallway that I've never met in person. And I've met with 10 or 12 times on a Zoom call. So you realize, although this is really effective to be here over video, it's not the same as spending time and really have an opportunity to really meet people and know about them, know about their families, know about what drives them. So it's been a challenge. And I think reentry and trying to figure out, okay, who's going to work remote? who's going to work on site, who's going to be hybrid, and then more importantly, how do we integrate that culture, and how do we make sure these people understand what Washington Trust Bank is about, and how do we make sure that that informal time that's so important for people to interact, it may be more efficient to work remote, but my question is it more effective? And so we're really looking at the structure of how our buildings are set up and really trying to work through that. And it's going to be an experiment over time, and I think it'll evolve.
Do you think you'll land on a hybrid model with some work from home?
I think the one good thing that we've learned from this whole process is remote can work. And I think for our employees is if they can spend one more day at home with their families and be effective and get done what they need to do and do some things remotely and save the time on their commute, I couldn't be more supportive of it. I think people will work differently going forward, but my hope is that there still is that gathering where you build culture, you have relationships. And we've been experimenting through COVID, bringing people together and trying to onboard those new people over video. And it's been effective, but it's not the same as being in person. So that'll be the challenge going forward. But I think the way all of us work in this remote world has changed, and I think it's changed for the better. And let's be honest, at the end of the day, I preach it a lot, and I'm probably not as effective at it. And that is, you have to have balance, and you have to have balance with your family, with your friends, and with your work. And I think we need to schedule aggressively everything that we do. And if your kid's got a game, go to the game, get it on your calendar and be there, because it's a fleeting moment in time you'll have. And so that discipline is going to be very interesting in this remote world, but I think it'll allow us to do that more often and hopefully be a lot more effective at it.
Yeah, I agree. We're trying to figure that out for Fisher's company and culture and what works. And I think there are a lot of opportunities to add balance and also with lots of offices, like you guys have way more than we do, but how do you connect those? This creates much better connectivity. It's definitely not as good as in person, and yet it's something we didn't have before. So I love it.
Yeah, and I think that we find that these videos are incredibly efficient, right? I mean, your ability to pull a group together and do it on a very quick basis versus the travel time is amazing. But I think those companies that lose track of the in-person relationship piece, their cultures will suffer over time.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome that you're hiring so much. We are in this thing called the Great Resignation. How do you fend that off? What do you think employees need to not be searching elsewhere?
It's a competitive market, and I think that there is that Great Resignation that's happening, and we've had a number of employees who have accelerated their retirements, and as well as a very competitive market from a recruitment perspective. But what we try and do is have some purpose, right? Have a company that they feel proud of, do things that they enjoy, and not that we don't have our challenges, but that environment and coming to people miss it. As I'm talking to people coming out of COVID, they really treasure the time with their customers, they treasure the time with their employees, and they treasure the time with their coworkers. And so I think we just need to really capitalize on that. And we have to go the extra mile as employers and do things that add quality of life to those folks and recognize them. And one of the things we found through COVID was recognize their spouses, send them a gift. This is a group effort for what we all do. And I think we focus on our employees so much, but their family may not get a feel for the culture and what we do. So we're trying to build out that program where we're really reaching out to the whole group and having them part of that Washington Trust Bank family. And we hope that both helps us in retention. It also helps us in recruitment going forward.
Oh, I love that. Well, moving to you personally, Jack, what other than shooting bowling balls out of a cannon, what do you do outside of work?
Outside of work, I love to socialize and drink wine, obviously. I love to snow ski, play golf, water ski, spend time at the lake. A lot of hobbies, and it's mostly spending time with great friends and doing fun things.
Is your golf game any better?
It's not, but it makes progress. And I'd say the best thing that I ever did was when I was a senior at Gonzaga Prep. Lou Holtz came and spoke to us, and it was a great thing. But the one thing he left me with was a bucket list, and so he challenged us to go home and write a bucket list of 100 things that you wanted to do. And when you do it, the first 25 are pretty easy, then it gets challenging. And the rule is, I've had that my entire life since that meeting. And every time you take one off the bucket list, you have to add one to it. And the amazing thing about that is when I'm in meetings, when I'm meeting people, the number of times that something has come up and I've mentioned that bucket list, and someone will say, well, hey, have you ever played Cyprus? And I'm like, it's on my bucket list, and they make it happen. So it's been a great adventure. And I think that's something that is all of us need to focus on, is doing those things while we can and when there's an opportunity.
What's the craziest thing you've ever done?
Jumped out of an airplane with you. I still have post-traumatic stress syndrome from looking at that thing.
What's crazy is right before we jumped out of that plane, you said the only other time you've done it, you had to use your backup chute.
Yeah, my parachute didn't open. I swore I'd never do it. And two good friends that were there with us talked us into doing it. And then they didn't make the weight cut. So you and I had to go. And when we did it out north here in Spokane, we jumped out and our chute didn't deploy properly and it was spinning crazily. We went to our backup chute and the guy was so calm. I never realized the peril we were at when we landed. He informed me he'd done over 2,000 jumps and never done that before. So my skydiving days may have begun and ended with you, my friend.
So what motivates you? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
What truly drives me is interactions with people and success. I mean, and that can be success with watching what our people achieve. It can be looking at our financial metrics as a company and the value we create for our shareholders. And it can be looking at the community and taking on an event that really makes a difference and is fun doing it. So I'd say it's being energized by the people that you work with, by the friends you spend time with, and the community that you serve.
And back to business and leadership a little bit. What's your biggest lesson learned as a CEO?
The biggest lesson I ever learned was going through an Enneagram and becoming self-aware of my own strengths and weaknesses. And I thought it was a great exercise that we did with our team, where you really analyze what drives us. And I think as a CEO, there are two things I didn't recognize. And that was, number one, everyone isn't motivated by the same things I love. And number two, they may not even like some of the things that I love. And number two was the impact that we as a CEO have when we say things around people and the actions that we take, the ripple effect that can create unintentionally. But just because of your position and your interaction with those folks, to be really self-reflective and be very careful of the messages you're sending, particularly those with a sense of humor like myself, who will often say a flippant remark. You don't realize the impact it can have. So I think that being sincere and real, but also being really cognizant of the impact you have on the people you work with.
What would you say your biggest challenge you've overcome as CEO was?
I think the biggest challenge we ever overcame really was a great crisis, a great depression, right? I mean, when we went through that downturn and we had clients under incredible pressure across our footprint and businesses were failing every day, it was the best and the worst thing I've ever been through in my life. And the worst part of it was watching long-term customers be adversely impacted. And in spite of everything they did right, they couldn't make it through that downturn. But the great part of it was the number of clients we were able to step up and help and watch them really prosper in a challenging time and make the hard decisions and work through it. And today, those relationships have never been stronger. And the way that they approach their business today and the way they manage it is different. And they're better at what they do, having gone through that time. So that was a very challenging time, but I think all of us grew and became better at what we do and how we do it.
And for emerging leaders, what one skill, if you said, go work on this skill to be successful in leadership, would you suggest they work on?
I would literally acknowledge your fear of failure and attack it. And I think the mistake that I made early in my career was not jumping in and putting myself out there. And I don't know if you've ever been in a meeting and you had a question you were going to ask, and then someone else asks that same question, or you're at a event and so you have an opportunity to interact with someone and you back away from that. And it makes a difference. And I think putting yourself out there and taking that risk and not being afraid to look stupid, not being afraid to fail, it pays massive dividends for people. And it's one of the most challenging things to do, no matter how extroverted you might be.
And what's the best piece of advice you were ever given?
The best piece of advice I ever was given by our chairman when he told me, you need to be sure you hire the best people available, and you need to hire people that are smarter than you. And by the way, it shouldn't be that hard. And historically, it's worked out really well, and it hasn't been that hard.
And finally, if someone were talking about you to somebody else and you weren't there, how would you hope they described Jack Heath?
I would hope that they'd say, there's a guy with integrity. There's a guy who works hard. There's a guy who has fun doing it. And if you need something, he's the guy you should call. And by the way, he works for this great bank filled with great people who are focused on their customers, their community, and work hard every day and have fun doing it. So you should bank there.
Well, I have described you that way, and one of the funniest people I've ever met. So on top of all those things. So thank you so much, Jack. Really appreciate your time, your insights, your friendship, and really thank you so much for doing this.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I appreciate your passion for leadership, and you've taught me a lot, my friend, and you're a good man. Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, we'll drink wine soon.
I can hardly wait. Buckle up, big boy. And ride scooters.
Yeah, that's right.
Say hi to your lovely wife for me, and if I can help you with anything, brother, just call me.